Most of us know the name Don Bluth, right? Former animator for Disney, then left the company to make his own projects.
In 1982, he released The Secret of NIMH. It wasn't hugely successful at the box office, but it was still a very popular film and paved the way for other films by Bluth, including An American Tail, The Land Before Time, and All Dogs Go to Heaven. But then after the 80s, his work started to suck.
And here's proof when he adapted Hans Christian Andersen's story of Thumbelina.
Bluth must have figured, I've animated this stuff for Disney, so maybe I could give directing it a try. I'm in support of the idea, but there's a simple problem. He just wasn't able to do it well. It doesn't really help that this film was released in 1994, which was during the Disney Renaissance years, not to mention the same year as the much more successful Lion King. But what went wrong? He was able to make his old stories good, so why can't he do an adaptation well? What is it about Disney that is capable of making great animated fairy tales that Don Bluth just wasn't able to after leaving the company?
And that's why we're here today. We're going to look over one of Don Bluth's biggest oopsies, Thumbelina.
Just to state right off the bat, we're only at the opening title so far, and already I'm feeling the Disney vibes. Is this one of those Disney rip-offs of the 90s? Ooh, a jarring cut between a 2D shot and a weird-looking CGI flyby. That's new.
La 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 la. If you follow your heart.
And we have an opening musical number. This has to be a Disney ripoff of the 90s, if nothing else. Just listen to it. Doesn't it sound like one of those traditional Disney songs back from the Golden Age?
When you follow your heart.
This singing French swallow is named Giacomo, voiced by Gino Conforti, and he introduces the story of Thumbelina. There was once a lonely old woman, voiced by Barbara Cook, who wanted to have a child, and after a visit to a good witch, she planted a tiny barley corn she was given, and from there grew a red flower, from which spawned a tiny girl that she called Thumbelina, because she is literally the size of her thumb.
Hello, Mother.
Impressive! She came straight from the womb and is already capable of forming words. And she sounds a lot like Jodie Benson.
Who is a girl no bigger than a bumblebee?
Who is the angel with the funny name?
We just had an opening song. Already we got another? I will say, for a knockoff, they got the traditional Disney song feel down. They got a decent idea of what the song's about, the melody's simple, and the animation in this feature, for the most part, is pretty well done. And on top of that, the singing performances are good too.
But let's not forget, this is not a Disney film. Wait.
The film's distributor was Warner Brothers, but since 2002 it's been under the release of 20th Century Fox.
A company now known as 20th Century Studios and is owned by Disney. And it's also on Disney Plus. I bet Disney must be really impressed with it, but let's dig further regardless.
The song's about how happy life is with Thumbelina around, and then we see the old woman reading a story when Thumbelina asks if there are any about little people, and much to her surprise,
They are little, just like me.
the stories of fairies that Thumbelina is being read makes her wish she was more human-sized because she thinks that for two people to be married, they'd have to be around the same size.
I must be the only little person in the whole world.
Don't ever wish to be anything but what you are.
Being true to yourself? Yep, common Disney message right there.
Before she needs to doze off, Thumbelina is placed in front of the open book so she can look at the pictures.
I know there's someone.
What? We're 10 minutes in and already our third song?
And it's the typical princess song about how she wants more out of her life than what she has. Isn't that something you've heard many times already?
Well, these songs are pretty short, but in all likelihood this means more repetition, right? Right?
But that night, her wish is about to come true, when the fairy prince named Cornelius, voiced by Gary Imhoff, stops by her windowsill on a bumblebee to pay our heroine a visit.
You're one of them.
Beg your pardon?
I thought I was the only one my size in the whole world.
I love this scene where Thumbelina has to assure the dog that Cornelius is perfectly fine.
Hero? No, he's a friend, look.
No trouble at all. The pleasure is mine.
Glad we settled that in like 30 seconds.
Cornelius talks about the fairy court and its prince, hyping Thumbelina up for the chance to meet him, even though she's already meeting him. Then they jump aboard the bumblebee and go for a flight. And we haven't even hit 20 minutes, yet we get our fourth song.
Let me be your wings. Let me be your only love.
Gee, riding on a bumblebee with your love interest, singing about flying beyond your own world. Doesn't that sound kind of like...
Yeah, it's the same idea, but with a different melody and much inferior.
You gotta love how well the 2D characters blend with CG objects. But then they get back, and Thumbelina gives Cornelius a vine of forget-me-not so he can forget her not. And he gives back a ring of green stone. Then suddenly he needs to leave because his mother, the Queen of the Fairies, is calling him.
Yes, I'm the prince.
The prince?
Yeah.
Shocking how that's not the first thing you tell her. It's not like Master Yoda testing Luke to find him, even though technically he's already been found. You just need to... You get the idea.
Cornelius promises to be back for Thumbelina in the morning and flies off on his bee. But during the night, she gets nabbed by a toad. Disney princess protagonist also becomes damsel in distress. Check that off the list. With a position like that, I fail to see how that's closing the window or stopping the toad from getting out still. If anything, realistically, the dog would be helping the toad get out the window, even if that's not his intention. Regardless, we get old chase scene. Finally, something other than singing! Yay! But it doesn't last long before she escapes, and Cornelius comes back to see the place in a wreck.
What happened? She was stolen away? Who did it? A toad?
I didn't know fairies can speak dog. They are magical beings though, so maybe I shouldn't be surprised.
Then we see Thumbelina at the home of her captors.
We are the very happy family singers de España. These are my sons, Mozo, Gringo, and Grande. I bring you here to become famous singer like me.
Maybe you should just give them a call.
Thumbelina tries to get out of it, but we get another freaking song and we're not 30 minutes in yet.
The scrubbings and the washings and the noses with the drippings and the sopas always boiling.
And this is where the traditional Disney musical numbers take a turn. Oh boy, does it take a turn. Just when I thought the songs were already going overboard.
We are the singers de España, the original cast, and there hasn't been a time we haven't played it.
We are the singers de España and we sing very fast.
We get on?
We get on? We get paid.
Oh, Bluth, how you change styles so quickly. I could have sworn we should have gone an hour in already, but we haven't even reached half of that and it's already the 5th song. And it's the first one that's a different style.
Can this movie decide what it's trying to be?
You know what's funny? They're already trying to get her to be part of the troupe just because she can sing very well, but they don't even consider the dancing. Heck, even Thumbelina has to talk about this, yet the mother brushes it over.
Could you say that a little slower?
Slower? We don't do ballads.
Then how am I supposed to practice? What if I don't even want to be in this troupe? I thought this was a free country!
Now I make her sing. Bueno, muy bueno. You got it.
And that's literally the only reason you hire me.
Oh, but there's more to it than that. Grundle, voiced by Joe Lynch, wants to marry Thumbelina, and the family leaves her on a lily pad so they can get the padre.
Doesn't anybody care what I think?
No, but whatever it is, I'm sure it's just about the same as any other Disney princess.
Remember Jacquimo from the opening? Well, he actually plays a part in this story. Thumbelina explains the situation to him, and he helps her move the lily pad.
But of course, she just so happens to be drifting towards a waterfall.
What waterfall?
That one!
Is it bad?
But thank goodness Jacquimo's around so he and his jitterbug friend could guide her to safety.
Are you really gonna marry the fairy prince?
If he asks me.
Who knows, there might be a shocking twist of events that he won't. He'll just leave me in the dust and break my heart.
Thumbelina also talks about how she wants to go home, so what do?
You're sure to do impossible things if you follow your heart.
35 minutes and 6 songs. And the feature is 86 minutes. So I'm willing to bet there'll be like 15 songs by the time this movie's over. That's kind of overkill, don't you think? But I will admit this is a catchy tune. Its concept is simple, the melody is memorable, the lyrics are creative, and it tricks you into thinking it's a Disney song!
Your dreams will fly on magical wings when you follow. Just trust the swallow and always follow your heart.
Could this get any more Disney? Now we're getting a glimpse of the Fairy Kingdom, where Cornelius requests that the winter be delayed as long as possible so he can rescue Thumbelina.
Don't worry, Mother. I'll be back. Cornelius! I'll find her!
Then we cut back to the Toads, who learn that Thumbelina escaped, and Grundle is upset to know she's gonna be marrying a fairy prince.
You'll not be able to show your ugly face on a stage no more.
Everybody laugh at you.
Nobody laughs. I said nobody laughs. Hey, go get Thumbelina and bring her back.
Sheesh, these guys will laugh at anything.
Hey guys, look at this! Adam tasted the forbidden fruit! Ah! Listen to this news! My girlfriend dumped me!
Hiya, Toots! Beetle's my name, and Razzmatazz is my game. Yeah! Curse splat!
Gilbert Gottfried, I'm very sorry that I had to learn you were a part of this movie. Now, I bet you're gonna send me a whooping beyond the grave for talking about how much your character here is the opposite of Iago.
I'm a connoisseur of sweet nectars, a designer of rare threads, and a judge of beautiful women.
Okay, I'll give you that.
And I'm going home.
What's your hurry, Toots? Relax, take a load off.
Jeez, what's with these characters other than Giacomo? If the lady wants to go home, let her freaking go home!
And I love the sound of your voice.
Okay, I think I get the idea. Her singing attracts everyone. By that, she should just keep her mouth shut while traveling. I'm sorry, Jodie Benson, I wish I didn't have to say this, but maybe talking to Ursula about losing your voice for your prince is not such a bad idea after all.
From the treetops, I could see my house. Then I'd know if I'm traveling in the right direction to get home.
No, you'll sing at the Beetle Ball and dance.
You know what this means, guys. Another freaking musical number. That's 7, just about after this movie has officially passed the mark to be a feature.
Baby kicks the beetle ball, and bugs are crawling to get in. When they hear that beetle beat, those beetle feet start to spin.
But at the very least, it is mercifully short after her costume gets taken off on stage, and for some reason, this gets the Beatles all laughing.
My.
Oh, attractive!
The boy, my dear, is ugly.
What? Huh? What kind of standards do these Beatles have?
Look at that, she ain't got no wings. Good gracious me, where are those things?
Oh wait, the song's still going. Sorry about that.
I'm sorry, Toots. I guess you're too ugly.
Talk about a sudden change in perspective. Thumbelina is heartbroken by the opinion of the Beatles, but Giacomo comes back to help her back up.
Does Prince Cornelius think you are ugly?
No, he thinks I'm beautiful.
And so you are, mon ami. Look,
Will you find the Veil of the Fairies?
I promise.
Cut to the next morning where a fox is chasing a rabbit.
When do we enter a Looney Tunes cartoon?
Basically, Giacomo asks the both of them where to find the Veil of the Fairies, but gets no help at all. But he has a nice pretty thorn in his wing. But he can still fly, and suddenly the summer changes to autumn.
Autumn. It is autumn. Oh, I must hurry to find the fairy prince. Winter is almost here.
But it just became autumn. I don't think 3 months is a quick span of time.
Grundle finds out that the beetle once had Thumbelina and threatens him in order to get more information.
We didn't hit it off too good, so I let her go. She's not my type. She's an ugly type. I don't like ugly.
She is beautiful.
Is it just me, or do I get the feeling this toad was once human? The beetle comes up with a plan to capture the prince in order to lure Thumbelina into a trap, but Grundle sounds as though he's a little slow about it.
Nab, the prince.
And set up a trap.
Nab, the prince.
Just nab the prince and set up a trap. You speak English? Try to keep up, Grundle, okay?
Down south.
You're making me very nervous here.
They seem like the perfect couple, don't you think?
You go capture prince.
Ah! My wings! You took my wings! You can't do that!
Yeah? I keep wings until you nab prince.
Listen, pal.
If you're gonna take my wings, why don't you nab the prince?
Then, very suddenly, winter comes. But it just became autumn. What kind of world is this where the seasons change, like that colored horse in Wizard of Oz? And the winter causes Cornelius to crash land and get stuck in a frozen lake with only his finger sticking out. And that's how the Beatles find him.
Ah! The prince! Somebody up there loves me!
Yes, Gilbert, that would be us.
Whew, I can't even feel anything in my feelers anymore.
What was this film rated again?
Thumbelina finds shelter in an old shoe, and by the way, is it just me or do I have the feeling we're missing out on some more musical numbers? They were coming pretty rapidly before, but now they almost seem to have stopped. Maybe this scene with the old woman will pick up the slack.
I know there's someone, somewhere, someone.
Oh, there we go. Now what are some sad Disney songs you know of? Baby Mine from Dumbo, Your Mother and Mine from Peter Pan, Goodbye May Seem Forever from The Fox and the Hound. They're all nothing compared to this.
Homeward bound, safe and sound and
Oh, don't mind me, I'm just trying to force out some tears.
After that song, we cut back to Thumbelina, who is being sheltered underground by a field mouse voiced by Carol Channing.
Did you really think you could survive the winter in that old shoe? Honestly.
I mean, a swallow used to say nothing's impossible, so yeah.
The field mouse leads Thumbelina to Mr. Mole, voiced by John Hurt, to bring some corn cakes to him.
Well, tell us about up there. I went up once, nearly blinded me. Hurried as fast as I could back down where it's dark and decent.
But... I love the light.
I hate it. End of story.
Odd of him to say this, even though his place has light. Don't go thinking I don't see that torch.
I love love stories, don't you?
Once upon a time, there was, the sun.
Sing it, Thumbelina, sing!
No! Every time you sing, you get yourself into trouble!
Once there was the sun, bright.
This girl's just asking for trouble constantly.
Winter has killed everything, even the sun.
Mr. Mole apparently has his own story to tell. He leads Thumbelina to a tunnel where he found a dead bird. Shakimo!
Well, there's one less bird to twitter up there.
I know, right? Don't you just hate getting canceled over something as simple as an opinion? Please don't cancel me for not enjoying myself.
The mole privately speaks to the field mouse about how he wants to marry Thumbelina and pays the field mouse to persuade her.
Leave the arrangements to me. Thumbelina.
I hear your heart. You are not dead, no.
Sorry, sounds like someone has a bad case of denial.
The beetle brings Cornelius back to Grundle and tells him about where Thumbelina is now.
Where are we going?
We go rescue Thumbelina from the mall.
You know what that guy does to beetles? He stuffs them.
Quiet!
Look, why don't you just go home and marry a toad? You ever think about that? You find yourself a pretty toad with warts and you marry her.
That's a good question. Why waste your life on a tiny human?
Then we see the field mouse getting Thumbelina ready for the wedding, but she is very resistant. Unfortunately, the field mouse is all too persistent, trying to convince her that money comes first over love.
Love is what we read about in books, my dear. Here comes the bride is a lovely little ditty, but marrying for love is a foolish thing to do.
Somehow I knew a song was coming. Why does the pacing between songs have to be so inconsistent? In the first half, they're spreading like a forest fire, but now in the second half, there's only like a few of them.
Dearie, marry the mole.
On top of that, I think this song's the worst one. The other songs up until this point were either kind of decent or just forgettable. This one is just jarring, especially when it hits near the end.
Dearie, marry the mole. Marry the mole.
What part of the rest of the song screams swanky jazz tune?
After that, Thumbelina has a little breakdown moment near Giacomo. Yeah, you know the one. The one where she feels meaningless before. Oh, why explain it?
I'm sorry for all the trouble I've caused you. I know now. There's no place in this big world for little people.
Not unless you're in a movie.
Giacomo awakens and advises Thumbelina that she ought to marry the prince. Then after the thorn is removed, flies off to find the prince, despite Thumbelina's pleas not to, because she's decided to marry the mole.
Bon voyage, mon ami! Bon voyage!
No! Giacomo! Oh, Giacomo. Stop torturing me. Cornelius is dead.
Follow your freaking heart!
The jitterbugs find the prince and use fire to melt his icy prison to tell him the mole's about to marry Thumbelina. Speaking of which...
Let me be your wings.
And we're hearing Discount a Whole New World again.
But thankfully, Thumbelina remembers Cornelius living on in her heart and refuses to marry the mole.
I don't love him.
What? Thumbelina.
I marry her.
Oh, great. Battle of the Grooms.
I know, marry you. I go home.
No.
Go away.
But then as she's escaping, the beetle suddenly decides he wants some of that.
Hiya, toots!
I'm not your toots.
He's like the most inconsistent character ever. First he wants her, then he doesn't, and now he does?
Can you choose a mindset and stick with it?
Cornelius comes in the nick of time, and it looks like he and Grundle are about to have a battle to the death.
Come on, show me what you got.
Well, that was pretty disappointing.
Thumbelina makes her escape, and with the shining sun, look! There's Giacomo!
Of course! C'est moi! Oh, Thumbelina, I found it! I have found it! I find the Veil of the Fairies!
Oh, Giacomo.
Yeah, no, listen to it. It is true.
So, finally, Giacomo takes Thumbelina to the Veil of the Fairies, which is clouded in snow, and doesn't look that exciting.
It just looks like a patch of ordinary weeds.
Oh, sing, Thumbelina, sing!
Oh, no.
So she sings, again. This time something bad doesn't happen. Instead, the winter melts and spring arrives. But even with all that, Thumbelina still isn't convinced.
Let's be practical. This isn't the Veil of the Fairies, and Cornelius is never coming back.
And I'll never let you fall.
Two lovers reunite at last and wed, complete with Thumbelina sprouting wings. This ending looks a lot like a Disney ending, doesn't it?
And of course, they lived happily ever after.
That was Thumbelina. Not a whole lot to get angry over, but it's still worth noting plenty of errors.
This film has Disney ripoff written all over it. You can say it at least has its positives, like the animation is mostly good, the performances are nice, and it has some good songs. Note how I said some good songs, like one or two, yet it gets hindered by some story elements that don't make much sense, inconsistent characters, and the rest of the songs are either forgettable or bad. It's especially disappointing knowing it was made by a director who has made much better films. This may as well have just had the Disney label if this is how it's going to be structured. Bottom line, this is not a film you ought to rush to, but if you really do believe there could be some merit, then follow your heart and see what you can enjoy about it.
As for me, I'm gonna follow my heart and watch an actual Disney film.
Is a wish your heart may